Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in, for joining us for an inspired live stream here. I got to take a sip of water before we go into this one. Welcome on Rumble. Welcome on YouTube. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free.
Introducing custom t-shirts.
And as we're speaking, something's turning on here. Give me one moment. Here we go. All righty, my friends. We're going to dive into a subject today that I've been meaning to cover for a while now. All morning long, I've been walking and sitting and thinking about how I present what we're about to talk about here on this platform. Most of the things that I want to say, I cannot say. That's kind of ridiculous. But that's the way it is. If I would get deleted. And I want to welcome everybody. We the new subscribers, the new members of the Inspired Tribe that are here on YouTube. Thank you so much. We really appreciate the opportunity to connect with new people continuously. So that's why we are on this platform, and that's where most people find us. But before we go into the zombie apocalypse subject, I just want to say that while this is probably the best place to find us, it is not the best place for uncensored videos and uncensored live streams. As you all know, these platforms are not free speech platforms. But if you go to inspired.locals.com, that's our community. It's our social media community where people can post, comment, share, where we do the live streams that have zero restrictions, zero, and I mean zero. You can be in a live chat, ask questions. That's our supporter platform, and we appreciate all our supporters there. And then we have, of course, our website where most of the uncensored videos and live and interviews are. And that's on the inspiredchannel.com. The banner's down here. That's what I wanted to get out of the way. Okay. The zombie apocalypse is for if people have never considered that what they have seen in movies might be one version of predictive programming or preemptive programming, then this will sound so out there to people that they will call me crazy. But hear me out. First off, there was a years ago, the CDC in 2011, they put out, and I'm trying to find it here. I think I just accidentally closed that website. But the CDC in 2011, they put out the zombie apocalypse guide. Here we go. I found it again. Here we go. There it is. So I'm gonna go through this and the official explanations. But basically, this was the New York Post reporting on it in 2011. CDC offers zombie preparedness tips in case Nostradamus was right. This was, of course, about the 2000 and no, actually, this article here is from 2021. I looked at one earlier from 2011. This is the update, 2021. And here you have it. This was an official poster. I'm going to make it a little bigger for you. This was the official poster by the CDC, put out, get a kit, make a plan, be prepared. Down here, you can see the CDC logo. This is really official. Now, they came out later and they said this was simply for entertainment purposes. They wanted to find a new approach to get people to prepare for any kind of disaster or emergency. You know, and I know that that's not true and accurate. But at the time when this first came out in 2011 and 12, people simply couldn't fathom that this could actually turn into reality. And how could it turn into reality? Well, you all have heard in the last years more and more about the merger of technology and man. Transhumanism is what they call it, right? And in this merger, it doesn't start with putting a chip in your brain. There is a whole campaign that has been unleashed on the human family over the last years and decades that is preparing us for it. Now, part of this is to begin genetically manipulating humanity, to start deleting certain capabilities and properties, genetically speaking, in the brain. One of the things that is, I mean, really on a strong, on a high scale being deleted over the last few years has been deleted was empathy, morals. And how do they do that? This is really interesting. Well, they're using everything from medicine to technology to entertainment to electromagnetic frequencies. Everything is being used to further this goal. The idea is to bring about a period that we are already in now, to bring about a period where they might call it civil war or something like that, but actually it's simply going to be people, and it's already is people going completely insane, doing empathy deleted things like we've never seen before. As a matter of fact, you see this coming from the big cities, violence and crimes that are unspeakable, where kids or young adults are simply, you know, killing, murdering other people for no reason, randomly walking by and shooting someone or hitting them over the head with something, and then maybe even posting a video about it, having zero emotional consequence, zero conscience, zero regret, zero anything. You can also see that these aren't your regular 1985 psychopaths. This is a different kind of psychopath. It is complete. It isn't even power motivated, sexually motivated, or any of these other basically deviant psychopathic traits. This is completely deleted from any other desire than to just do whatever thought comes in the moment. And so, of course, we have had huge mass medical interventions over the last years. That's as far as I can go. You probably know what I mean. And some of these, well, there are various kinds of this mass medical intervention, and some of these were specifically aimed at muting certain genetic expressions. Others were aimed at disabling certain functions in the brain. Where is a lot of our emotional intelligence? How do we process new information, compare it to already stored information, and come to an analysis and use ethics and morals to make decisions? A huge chunk of that is actually happening in the brain, in a part of the brain called hippocampus. And in the hippocampus, the processing of new images that we're receiving, the comparison, analysis, reflection happens. Now there's a and Frank Jacob, whom I interviewed yesterday. That interview is going to probably air tomorrow. You're going to want to see this. This is the deepest rabbit hole we've gone down so far. It's going really deep. Frank Jacob made me aware of Dr. Let me pull him up here so you can actually see what I'm talking about here. Of a Dr. Michael Nels, and he wrote a book down here. It's called The Indoctrinated Brain, and we're going to go into this in a moment. But basically, what he discovered is that over the last years, the hippocampus that creates new cells and I think gray matter. If I'm not, please don't quote me on that. I'm not a doctor. But this production has ceased in many people all over the world, and it's never been observed before. Now, there are various different explanations that he comes up with. One of them is the technology that we use and how we use it. But basically, what the fundamental result of that is that people are losing their ability to process, analyze information, and compare it to what they already know and come to a balanced conclusion before they make a choice or react. It is completely disabling this whole step, and it's making people simply react emotionally in the moment. Now, we've seen this, of course, in huge numbers over the last years. It's getting extremer and extremer. So let me read this to you. This is the this is kind of, I think, the back cover of the book. Around the world, mental performance is declining, especially among young people, while depression rates are rising dramatically. 1 in 40 people now suffers from Alzheimer's, and the age of onset is falling rapidly, but the causes are not being eliminated. Can this be a coincidence? The indoctrinated brain presents a largely unknown, powerful neurobiological mechanism whose mostly unnoticed but multiple disruptions underlie these catastrophic developments. In this book, Dr. Michael Nails, a physician and internationally renowned molecular geneticist, lays out a staggering chain of evidence that suggests that behind these numerous negative influences lies a targeted, masterfully executed attack on our individuality with the goal of depriving people of their ability to think for themselves. But it is not too late. By revealing these brain-damaging processes and describing individually implementable countermeasures, Nails brings light and hope to this fateful chapter in human history, nothing less than the question of whether our species will be able to preserve its humanity and creative power, or whether it will lose them irretrievably, will be decided in our time. And I'm going to share this link here in a YouTube live chat. Unfortunately, I can't share it any other live chat. But here's this for you. So basically, this doctor, and as far as I understand, it goes deeper into it, why this is happening, how this is happening. However, the bottom line is that all these ideas of a zombie apocalypse, which basically means that humans are losing, I would say, all access to consciousness and awareness and are simply biologically, instinctively driven animals. And when you then inject fear, and when you then inject certain other elements, you can create a horrific scenario. And I think we're already seeing this. I'll be honest with you. I have never been more vigilant when I'm driving, and I love driving. I've driven many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of miles in my life. Driving has become much more of you know, I have to be on such high alert because there are so many people that are completely unaware of their surroundings. The way they drive, they have no reaction time. They're just like hypnotized. I see these people in the grocery stores. I see them in large masses. I see that people have lost certain abilities, and this is just the beginning. But what if somebody, or you know, a group of entities that is steering world events as it is, what if they want that to happen? Why could somebody want that to happen? Well, if you assume that whoever wants to create psychopaths must be a psychopath themselves, then we have one assumption here that I think is the basis of all of this. So if psychopaths want to ultimately bring about a completely different order, which they've talked about for a long time, well, something needs to happen that would bring people in. We see this, a lot of natural disasters, lots of war zones now. We had 2020 and the aftermath. So it is the decade of complete chaos, and we have seen nothing yet. But so far, we haven't seen the huge warlike division amongst people in geographical areas where you would say, hey, you know, for example, I'm living in middle Tennessee here. I have not seen a clash between the people here. Everything is still very peaceful. How could that happen? Well, if you all of a sudden have something that signals these susceptible people and puts them in the zombie-like state, which is possible. I mean, mind control, MK Ultra does that all the time, and all the various different methods of mind control that have been developed from MK Ultra and more sophisticated now. That's what they do. They create whatever monster they want to create. But now the technology is so far ahead that we cannot possibly imagine what is really possible. So what would you do? You would create a such an emergency, such a horrific event that would turn people against people, or people against zombies. And ultimately you would jump in and you would say, here is the solution. We can end this. There's a technology. If everybody accepts this technology, it can deactivate this process. It can help these zombie-like people, and it can restore peace. Trust me, this or a scenario like this is what they have in mind. They create this huge problem, then they wait for what happens. That's the reaction, right? And then they give you the solution. Of course, in their minds, it's going backwards. They already have the solution. And then they create the problem, so you react in the way that allows them to give you the solution. This is what this whole game, how it's always played, right? Problem, reaction, solution. So when I say most people are not prepared, there's only so much that you can really prepare for when it comes to an event where people are losing their humanity. And this is what I think we're facing here. People are losing their humanity, but they still appear as humans in our sphere. So we still see them as humans, but that which inherently makes them humans, which is consciousness, awareness, morals, ethics, that's what distinguishes us from animals that are instinctively driven. And I know that animals have a consciousness too and a spirit too, don't get me wrong. But there's only so far you can corner a lion or a bear or a wolf before they'll attack and kill you. It's just the way it is, right? And basically, the people are being robbed of what makes them human in this sphere here, and are turned into instinctively driven animals. Now, when that happens, how could you prepare? Well, first of all, there is, and this is gonna, oh my God, this is gonna trigger people. This is gonna, there is this perception among the love and light brigade that we have to accept everything and everyone, that we're all one, we have to love everybody, and that we can never use our discernment and judgment to alienate someone or to even declare them an enemy. I think it's very moronic to think this way, because it's not realistic, and it's also not true, because there actually are people who kill other people, murder people, rape people. There are people who do horrific things, right? So I'm not going to love on them. They come here, well, you know what they're going to face. That other side of the barrel. That's just how it is, right? So, but this approach, and I think it ultimately stems, and again, probably going to get attacked on this, but probably stems from something like white guilt. This has been infused. I grew up in Austria, and my generation, my father's generation, had nothing to do with the Second World War, right? But we were all guilted with indoctrination into assuming this generational guilt. And this has happened here in the United States with slavery. So, and other, of course, other huge problems that were here and atrocities. But ultimately, this idea, this love and light, let's always and unconditionally accept everyone and everything they do. I think it's ultimately part of the same psychological disorder that has manifested, where people feel so guilty for what previous generations have done, and they feel so guilty for how the white man took the red man's land and all of that, which, we talk about this a lot. We see things in a very nuanced way and acknowledge these things. But this kind of it's almost self-destructive guilt has become so pervasive that some people will not save their own life or save the life and defend the life of their families out of fear to alienate someone, out of fear to offend someone, out of fear to exclude someone. Well, call me crazy, but I'm going to exclude zombies from my experience. I'm going to exclude murderers and rapists from my experience. I'm going to do everything in my power to exclude them from my experience and my family's experience. See, love wins. I totally agree. But you come at me with this bullshit. Well, I'm going to exclude you. So we have to have this kind of discernment and use the ability to judge. And judge people only use in negative ways, but judging simply means that you're using that ability in your brain and the hippocampus to say, okay, I'm analyzing the situations, I'm absorbing all the data, and I'm coming to a conclusion that is rational and logical and includes intuition. We have all these capabilities and we now need to use them. So the preparedness for this really is, and I encourage everyone to be physically prepared in terms of food, water, shelter, have a bug out bag, have something in stock, even if it's only rice or beans or something like that. Prepare as best as you can, because we're going through very, very challenging times. That's a given. But to prepare for something like a zombie apocalypse, even though I don't like this term, but that's what everybody kind of understands what it means. To prepare for something like this, we need to first allow ourselves, give ourselves permission to accept that that's a reality, that already is a reality. And that's most difficult for people, to accept that that could be possible, and that there is such evil who would bring that about, but such evil does exist. So that is the first thing. And the second thing is, there's a reason why nation after nation after nation have stolen the natural right of people to defend themselves, including with weapons. They've stolen that from people. Now it's still active in the United States. And I encourage everyone to make good use of the constitutional enshrinement of that right with the Second Amendment. Make good use of it. There's various reasons to do it, and very few not to do it. And I'm not a violent man. That's not part of my thought process. I never even come into these situations. But I'm not ignorant, and I'm not naive. And I am prepared. So I encourage everyone to think about this and think about what happens when, and you're observing this already. I know this because you're actually sending us emails and messages. I already know that you're observing this phenomenon. You're seeing people that you've known for 10, 15 years change. You've seen their character change. You've seen their behavior change. You've seen their aggressiveness change. A lot of people have gotten way more edgy, aggressive. Others have gotten very lethargic. That's kind of the less invasive reaction. But there's a lot of that. Of course, it's more dominant in urban areas for various reasons. The concentration of people is higher, so there's a higher average. But then also you have a higher concentration of electromagnetic influence in a much more dense and smaller area, which seems to be triggering a lot of this also, by the way. There's a famous scene in a horrible movie. Started as a great movie, right? First Matrix movie, the second one was even good. But then the last one, Resurrections, a scene towards the end where people are receiving a signal. I think I remember it right. They received the signal on their smartphones, or there was some sort of signal coming through, and boom, they all mass dropped. These are not speculations anymore. The technology exists, the ability exists, and the motive definitely is here. So what is ultimately the solution? Because that's the question. How do we ultimately come through this? Because we're going through this. There's no going around it. There's just going through this. We are going through this. And I ultimately believe that there's only one thing, really only one thing that supersedes ultimately all of this crap, and that is elevated consciousness. I've seen yogis and meditators, people that have prayed and meditated for decades and that have increased and awakened their naturally given divine abilities. When you see a yogi sit in a fire pit, literally sitting in the flames, unharmed, then you know that there is a power within us that we can tap into that pretty much gives us the ability to overcome all this crap. It's, the Neo thing, going back to the Matrix, the Neo thing, realizing who you are and what this is, right? And this is why we talk about this so much, why the elevation of consciousness and awareness and rising as high as you can in that and as broad and as wide as you can is ultimately, in my knowledge, to my knowledge, in my perception, the only real solution to all of this. Now, we're talking about solutions on multiple levels. Of course, you can live without food and water. People have been living like this for eons. And there's, I personally know, we personally know a guy for years. He will drink a cup of tea with you if you sit down with him for social reasons, but usually no water and no food for years and years. But this is not a very sustainable solution for most people, because it requires so much attention, focus, and energy into this on a daily basis. And it also basically requires you to live a completely different life. I don't think most people are ready for that yet. So we do have to have these physical preparedness steps. But ultimately, the solution always has been elevated consciousness, where we rise above the projected conflicts of this simulated reality of this matrix. This is what this is all about. So friends, I'm gonna leave it at that. It's a lot to digest, but I do believe we're gonna see more and more and more of the zombification that's already in progress. We're gonna see more random acts of violence, which of course we do see every day now, but we're also going to see an increased number of random acts of goodness, random acts of love, random acts of healing. This is also part of this equation. It's part of the solution. So do not despair, but don't be naive. We have to walk and chew gum. I keep saying this at the same time, and realize we're living in such an ambiguous and such a multifaceted aspect of this reality that really requires for us to activate all of our capabilities. I will go in the live streams that we call Coffee and Truth in the Inspired community and locals. I'll go deeper into the mechanisms, how this works in the next days and weeks. We're going to talk more about it. What brings this into the body and how it's distributed, all of that we cannot talk here. So if you feel inspired to join us there on locals, it's a whole community. As I said, you connect with others, people have become friends, roommates, many things have happened there. And it's completely free speech, uncensored. Inspired.locals.com. It is a supporter platform. There's a small monthly fee or a reduced yearly fee. But then we have all these hundreds and ultimately thousands of videos and interviews that are always free to watch. And the most uncensored, unfiltered way to do that is to go to theinspiredchannel.com. You'll find different categories, different interviews. Just check it out. It's, of course, all free to watch there. And we just thank you for being here with us, for sharing this, for talking about it, for sharing with us your thoughts on this, and for allowing us all to be together on this journey. It's actually quite exciting. I think it's probably the most exciting time to be alive in forever. So much love to you all. We love you. We appreciate you, and we'll be back with you again very, very soon.